Hey guys, how you going? This is BillyEatWorld again, and today we're going to take a look at some recent news we got about competitive modes apparently coming to Battlefield 5 very soon. And for this discussion, I'm actually going to be joined by NSeeker707, a South African EA game changer who's very involved in the up-and-coming Battlefield esports scene. Now, the reason I think this is a good topic for us as a community to get into right now is because competitive Battlefield is something that DICE and EA have never really managed to get off the ground. And so, as always, enjoy the discussion, but make sure before you go to let me know what you think in the comment section down below, because I'm sure DICE really want to know what you guys think competitive should look like in Battlefield 5. Alright, so to kick off, we should start by talking about some info that we found out in just the last few days. We found out in the brand new Battlefield 5 roadmap that in Chapter 4 Defying the Odds, which is going to be coming in June 2019, apparently we're going to be getting a bunch of brand new close quarters maps and also a new 5v5 competitive mode, which is going to be set in specifically designed arenas. Now, with that being said, the official posts don't actually confirm that it is going to be a competitive mode, but that's pretty much what everyone in the community is thinking, and DICE really aren't arguing with that at the moment. And so that's what we're going to get into today. What should a competitive Battlefield look like? And now I'm going to throw it over to NSeeker. What do you think a competitive mode should look like?
Well, first of all, the fact that DICE has announced a new 5v5 mode, not really saying it's competitive yet, but I think it's a really interesting point that 5v5 is really how you would want competitive to look, especially if EA and DICE is looking at a world-scale competitive event, like a World Championships, perhaps. When you got a 32v32, it becomes difficult, especially from a sponsorship point of view and logistics, to get 32 people to a venue and actually have a championship with 32 people on one side, 32 people on the other side. And yeah, it doesn't really work too well.
And I mean, not even just that. I mean, like when you think about like at that sort of level, you're not just gonna like bring 64 people out and actually have them play like the one game. You're going to want to try and have, just say, for example, at EA Play, they have like a Battlefield World Championships. They're going to bring people out and do like, a quarterfinal and a semi-final. So realistically, there's a lot more than just 64 people if you were to do it in that sort of traditional Battlefield format. So, I think 5v5 really at this point, even though it's not technically like, traditional Battlefield, it's probably the only way they can actually do it. So in a sense, I guess what we should say is that competitive Battlefield, whatever it does look like, it's not going to probably look like what we would expect Battlefield to look like. But with that being said, though, what would you expect to see, even if it is a 5v5 mode? What sort of things make Battlefield unique that you'd expect to see?
Well, the one thing that you always hear is unique about Battlefield is the vehicles, of course. So you've got tanks, you've got planes, you've got some aquatic vehicles in some of the other titles. Yeah, those are the things that when people think Battlefield, that's what they see. Now, it makes it difficult in a 5v5 mode. So I think in incursions, they tried to bring that in with one tanker per squad. So something like that could really work. Other than that, you've got the modes that really work for it. So domination, squad conquest, defuse, squad obliteration, things like that, which are really action-packed and fun and exciting to watch, and really exciting and fun to play as well.
And I think that's the main thing that I think we really need to touch on, is that whatever this is going to be, it has to be interesting to watch, because I think that's the biggest problem, I think, with, competitive Battlefield to this point, is it's been hard to kind of find, a mode or a, game type that feels like Battlefield, but also is interesting to watch at the same time. And we've talked about this before. I think Squad Conquest is probably one of the few modes that up to this point has felt like traditional Battlefield, but on a much smaller scale. We were just talking about vehicles just before. I think Squad Conquest was one of the best modes to bring vehicles into a small player cap mode. I mean, would you, like, what would you think, for example, if there was a Battlefield World Championships and Squad Conquest was the mode? Would you get behind that?
I would love it. I mean, I absolutely adored Squad Conquest when it was out, and have begged for it to be brought back. I mean, it's great. They do need to do some work on some of the aspects of it in terms of the spawns and things like that, but the placement of objectives was fantastic, and the actual size of the map was actually great, and I know a lot of people were really enjoying it.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess one thing that I probably should let you guys know as well is that, when I was in DICE in Stockholm last week, I actually did have a chat to some of the guys who built Squad Conquest, and this isn't the final iteration of the mode. The reason why things are rotating in and out is because they're looking for what we like, and then they're going to adapt it. So you can probably expect that Squad Conquest is going to come back at some point, maybe with some different maps, maybe with a slightly changed format. And so, at this point, we don't really know what this new 5v5 close quarters mode could be, but it might be just Squad Conquest redesigned for in a competitive shell. But with that being said, it could be something different as well. I think probably Diffuse is one of the best modes that we've ever seen, just purely because it's objective based. You had to go in and arm a bomb. So that's, I've heard from a lot of people that that's what they'd expect a competitive Battlefield to look like. For example, Rainbow Six Siege or CS:GO. Diffuse makes a lot more sense on that standpoint. But I mean, yeah, I think most people would agree Squad Conquest is a pretty cool mode, and either one of those options would be fun to watch, which is the main thing, I think. Now, with that being said, though, I think the real question is, even if they do get all of this up and running, they get a 5v5 mode that everyone's happy with, how do they take that to the next level? Who's going to actually provide the framework for something like a Battlefield World Championships? And obviously there's going to have to be a qualifier tournament level below that as well. So who's going to provide that framework? Is it going to be EA itself, or maybe some of the third-party leagues who are doing it already?
Well, in my sort of ideal world, I would say that the third-party leagues that have been running all these tournaments and that have been doing such a great job of keeping Battlefield competitive going smoothly and just keep going from game to game, then I think that DICE and EA almost need to sort of give the qualifying to these leagues and have sanctioned tournaments that actually give qualifying points towards something like a world championship.
So basically what you're saying is they kind of need to put in almost like an officially sanctioned rule set, if that makes any sense. Because I think we were talking about this before. You were saying that, basically the issue is that there's all of these leagues out there putting on tournaments and, events and whatever, but they're all doing things in a different way. And so, if they actually do ever want to, for example, start a world championship, then that's just not going to translate, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you've got all these great ideas that are coming from all the different leagues, and people play differently, so that's also one thing to consider. But if you're going to have something at a world championship level, you've got to have a definite rule set in place and a way of doing things, a structure to a tournament, things like that, which actually give it some sort of backbone, to go through towards something like a world championship.
Yeah, like EA needs to be not so much the body that's in charge of putting everything together, but more like the authority that makes sure that everybody runs things in the same way, so that once we actually do select the world champion team for Battlefield, for example, if that's what's going to happen in the future, those guys can actually know themselves, and the community can know that they've actually earned that. They haven't just worked their way up by competing in leagues with different rule sets. It all has to be standardized, if that makes any sense.
Of course. I mean, you can have your regional champions but in saying that, you want your regional champions to know that according to official DICE rule sets, we are the top team in whatever region that we are participating in. Even if they don't make it to the top 3 in the world, they still know that according to DICE rule sets, according to EA rule sets, whatever, that is where they qualified.
Yeah, I agree. And that kind of actually brings us on to our last point, which is that, just assuming that DICE in June gets together, the best 5v5 competitive mode we've ever seen. That's good. Everyone's happy with that. And assuming we've got this amazing support, EA really wants to get behind competitive Battlefield. The one thing we haven't talked about is this going to apply to console as well as PC? Because at the moment, most competitive modes in first-person shooters are based around the PC player base. So, I mean, do you think console players have a role in this story?
Well, personally, all my experience on competitive Battlefield has been on a console level, and I know traditionally there is really PC orientated competitive and that, and I'm really hoping that Battlefield can find a way to bring the console aspect into competitive Battlefield, because that is really the community on console for competitive is massive, and I think they would be losing a lot of players just based off of just narrowing it down to PC only.
And not just that as well. I mean, like, you have a look at the actual active players. I mean, we can't really see what the active player base is for Battlefield 5 because as far as I know, and I could be wrong on this, don't quote me on this, but there's no, like, BF5stats.com like we've seen for the previous games. But, for previous games, basically, the console player base has been almost twice the size of the PC player base. So, for example, just say there's, 150,000 players playing at any one point in time. Well, 100,000 players of that are going to be on console, whether it be PS4 or Xbox One. So, basically, in a sense, they're alienating 2/3 of their player base if they actually do make competitive just PC-based. So I think we both agree maybe that, like it would be stupid for them to do all of this stuff and then completely disregard console, right?
No, I completely agree with that. The console community would be absolutely devastated, I think, to be left out of something like that.
So there you go, Dice. You've been told. Please, 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 please do this right. Please take this all as feedback, and for the love of God, please do not disregard console.
Amen.